I we started we started going through policy G last time, and I guess unless anybody wants to say anything, we'll just take up where we left off. Fran?
I have written up a little thing and I don't know whether to call it a suggestion or what. My question, and here's my question, it's for us to look at in terms of the policy rather than editing, but to look at maybe writing something brand new. And because and I may be dead wrong on this, but I had the feeling that the policy that's there now has a lot of detail and almost procedural things in it. And I wondered if we should have, and I think Gary, you sort of alluded to this also, is that we should have something that's more not so specific in terms of we'll buy the equipment, we'll buy the this, we'll buy the that, but sort of more of a philosophical. And I had sent around some things that I had seen in on the ALA side, and I combined them, and I also used some of the vision and mission statement that we have in the strategic plan, and I sent that to Jessica so that she could screen share so that the committee could look at it and just say, no, Fran, that's really not on track at all, or well, let's take a look at that. So if that would be amenable.
Gary, would you like me to share my screen and show the document that Fran provided?
Yeah, go ahead. I'm not very good on looking at the screen, but
I will. Is that large enough, or would you like it a little larger?
I can read it.
So this is what Fran provided as her potential re-ideation of policy G regarding the selection of materials. This is it in its entirety.
And the first part of it is you may recognize from the first sentence is a lot from, I think it's sort of a combination of vision and maybe some stuff from the mission statement as well. And then I put in, the recommendation about the 20%. Then I divided selection into evaluation, purchase, and placement. And then the evaluation is just strictly lifted from an ALA list. So that's that. And then the purchase, I thought, I wasn't thinking of that beforehand, but then when I saw in the strategic plan how important that is, and I think as public administrators, the idea that, we are in charge of public money. And sometimes I think, well, it did come up in the discussion about paying for a speaker at our board meeting, but I think it can also come up in terms of complaints about you spent my money on X. So I felt maybe we would want to add, that we're aware of that, we're cognizant of the responsibility, and we work hard to, husband our resources really carefully. And then talking about placement is sort of like an equity issue of making sure that everything is readily available, and Access Services Department, whether we would want to, flesh that out. A robust holds reserve system and interlibrary loan system, because that interlibrary loan was mentioned in the other one. So maybe I'm way off base here, but I just, when I was looking at the current one, and I was getting my pen out and doing all the rewrite the minutes kind of thing, and I thought, wait a minute, maybe we need to start over. So for your thoughts and comments, and if it doesn't feel right at all, I'm not ego involved in it. It's fine, whatever you want to say, but this is what I came up with.
My initial reaction, I like this approach
Same.
better than like wordsmithing the other policy. We had talked about this kind of ahead of our policy committee meeting. I think about like legislative history. If you make a word change in a law or in a regulation, then people really focus on that word change and they wonder, well, what did you mean by that? Why did you make that word change? And so I feel like if we were to undertake an effort to wordsmith the current policy, we might open ourselves up to a lot of questions like, okay, you changed the word, this to that. And so either my preference would be to just keep the same policy as is, but if we think the current policy is not the right policy and we need to change it, I like this type of approach. And just looking at this really quickly, it looks like it captures what we would want it to capture. So that's my gut reaction.
I agree. I like that it's got a different format, so it's so much easier to sort of, boom, 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 and it seems sort of unarguable. The way it's laid out like this versus in a prose paragraph makes it so much clearer and so much less, I think, ambiguous. Open to comment, criticism. I mean, it's just laid out as bullet points, makes it so nice. I really like this, Fran. And I honestly, reading it, I can't think of anything you missed, to tell you the truth. I mean, I didn't, obviously I've only read it a couple of times, but I like the way it's
So-
put together.
From a staff perspective, I think this would be very easy for someone to review and understand what the selection policy looks like. I do have two really minor recommendations if you all choose to move forward with this format. Under the placement section, I think that it would be valuable to add a bullet that talks to having a robust collection in branches. Right now, it talks about placement through access services, which is special services, holds, so you can get things brought to you in ILL if we don't have it. But there isn't anything in here that speaks to trying to ensure that every location that we have,
Yeah.
you can walk into and find good things, which I know, Fran, is very important to you personally, is important to all of us as well.
Yeah,
So I would recommend a brief bullet or something like that in that section. I also think that it might be valuable to add something to the evaluation section. If we're pulling in the language from your new strategic plan, it may be helpful to also have something in there that pulls back to the county's One Fairfax statement, while not specifically calling out that statement, that the evaluation criteria should include an equitable review for all users, or something that speaks to the fact that we have a broad and diverse community and we're trying to select materials that hits multiple different demographics.
It's nice to say that overtly, like I was sort of hearing it, reading it in with my mind with the first bullet point. But
Yes.
if you say it clearly, then it's underscoring what's in our strategic plan
mhm.
and Fairfax, so it makes it unified.
Yeah, it's good. And I like adding what you said about the collection in each branch, because I when I was looking at that part and I was thinking, we have an interlibrary transportation system that brings books wherever, and I couldn't think of a way to put that in there. And the whole equity thing of like, no matter what zip code you live in, you have a library that is equal to all the other libraries. The criticism of schools of sometimes of like, depending on your zip code, you may not have the best school, but our libraries are not like that.
Yeah.
So however to communicate that, like each branch is taken care of. Yeah.
Gary, what would you like the committee to do? Would you like to move forward with Fran's modifications? Do you want to go back and edit the original document?
Well, I'm of two minds. Number one, Parker pretty much outlined my concern about what we were doing with the other one. On the other hand, in general, and Jessica and I disagree on this. I think the board should have more direction on things in general. But again, if we do that now, it's counter to my first concern. Third, I'm wondering if this approach, because we're starting completely new, if that raises the same kind of concern that Parker raised. But putting all those three things together, we've already started. So no matter what we do, the concerns could be raised. And so my bottom line, a long answer to a short question is we might as well go ahead with this approach, which really does the job, I think.
Gary, my apologies. I had one other recommendation or suggestion for the committee. Fran, in your section on evaluation, you have a bullet that says the sustainability of physical form for library usage. The word physical to me indicates just the books that are in our branches, but we don't have anything in here that talks at all about ebooks or ebook delivery. Would there be value in just deleting the word physical so that it's a sustainability of form for library use, so that you could kind of pick and choose if it's an audiobook, a book, an ebook?
Yeah. And you're saying sustainability, and I'm seeing suitability.
Oh, you were right. My apologies.
But and I'm wondering if would format be the word that we should? Would that include? Is that inclusive enough, or?
It is for me. I just wanted the committee
But
to.
yeah, that's good. I like that. Yeah.
But the types of stuff that we hold.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, I promise that was the end of my recommendations on this one.
Well, and where you put materials which represent the diverse and unique population, should that just be let's see, criteria, representation of the diverse rather than material? Sure. Does that make sense to everyone?
Yeah.
Could we
Okay,
say represent, following criteria representation of our diverse community, just diverse community instead of population of library users?
I don't know that we have any first person
Yeah, we don't.
pronouns
Yeah.
in here,
Okay.
but there's still representation of the diverse population. Is that okay?
I like community better than population, is what I'm sort of getting.
Mm.
Got it. So process-wise, if you all are happy with this modification and you don't have any additional pieces you want to add on or wordsmithing you want to do, this committee needs to vote to move forward the item as a consideration item to the full board. It would then be considered at your March meeting and acted on at your April meeting.
I just had I think there's a typo in the second line. All the way at the top. Not that, no, not there. Inspires the diverse community.
Right.
Informs, engages, and
Good. Yeah.
inspires.
Good catch. Yeah.
I think
Well,
which.
that
bullet?
informs, engages, and inspires.
Oh,
Yeah, the very first line, I'm sorry.
got it.
Mhm.
We don't do Oxford commas here.
Oh, that is
I was wondering about that
that's a
too.
debate of your all's options.
I look at that and it
The
gives
Oxford
a little bit of
comma?
a skin crawl without the
You want an
Oxford.
Oxford comma in there? Sure. Yeah.
Oh Lord, without the Oxford comma, I'm like,
Gotta have it. Can't live without it.
Okay, some of us have magnets at our desk that say that the Oxford comma is the only thing separating us from the barbarians.
I don't even understand the argument. Like,
Mm-mm.
who, why, what? It doesn't make any sense at all.
But this is your policy. You can Oxford it or not.
There was a comedian who used to make a joke about an insurance company that gave a policy that covered fire and theft, and it was like, no, someone has to rob your house while it's on fire. That's the way that it's written, and I think that's the Oxford comma joke. And like,
Like, there's so many Oxford comma jokes.
yeah, there are.
One, there's like a whole lot.
I know, yeah. Okay,
Oh, it has meaning, guys. Punctuation, it has meaning.
so
So I-
Jessica, you know, the point that you made about in the branch, and then you added a sentence. Do we need to put in? It says broad library-based collections. Is that location-based or location? I mean, I'm not sure. Yeah, do we need to? In all? Yeah,
How's
I
that?
I like that. How about,
Or if that makes it sound like there's more than one digital library, I can swap physical and digital so that it's more clear that there are many physical library branches, but just the one digital branch.
Yeah, that probably makes sense.
mm-hmm,
So I'd like to make the motion consistent with what Jessica said. Like what, that we are gonna bring this forward to the board.
as a consideration item, yeah.
Give me a minute.
Gary sounds like he's.
I'm sorry, I just don't work well. On the screen like this. I'm sorry.
I'm having trouble hearing you,
Okay.
Gary.
I think Gary is still reviewing the language that you proposed, Fran.
Okay, oh, okay. In my library management work psyche, I wanted to send this to everyone before the meeting, but I thought that it's not something that one should do. Is that right, Jessica?
So you could send it to everyone. We would just need to post it online as well for public consumption. Yeah, so if you have anything like this in the future, just send it around to everyone. We'll tag it onto the agenda afterwards.
Okay.
You're saying so that people have. some
Had time to look at it.
read
I didn't want to just spring it on people. And I was
Can I
just
ask a
uncertain.
Question about that? I'm sorry, Fran.
No, I'm done.
Regarding reviewing in advance. Is there value in having discussion at the full board?
So there will be. The way
There
that
will be.
policy review works for the full board is you have a policy committee that is making recommendations. It comes to the full board as a consideration item to start, so it is just read into the record.
Mhm.
Then you all have a full month to review and reflect on it, and then when the following board meeting comes up, it's an action item that requires consideration and discussion on it. I would anticipate you all would likely have some for this one, unlike other ones where it's been like when we had the all virtual meeting policy, which was dictated by the county's attorneys.
Yeah.
That one, there's not a lot of discussion because there's no opportunities to modify. With
Mhm.
this one, I think you would have a pretty robust discussion.
So then, Fran, that's why I was wondering if it needed to go out before it would be put out as a consideration item, or whether that would be sufficient, is what I was meaning. That's what I meant. That's why I was asking about. So were you suggesting that it be sent out prior to,
No.
or,
No, what I meant was, when I thought of doing this, I thought that in the way, when I was a branch manager or even the management team, like I would have sent it to the management team to look at and say, we're gonna talk about this at the meeting. Here's a chance to look at it, think about it, and then the discussion would be more targeted and more meaningful rather than like, here it is, guys, look at it. What do you want to do? And it's like, well, I need time to look at it. So, operating in the public sphere, I still get used to that. And so I thought, well, I guess I'll send it to Jessica and Kevin to put up as a screen share, but I really shouldn't send it to the individual members of the committee to discuss, because then that might turn into like, having emails, which would be, not really appropriate. Because it would be like conducting board business, not in the public.
Well, thank you, Fran, for that consideration. I appreciate that. As long as we make things publicly accessible and as long as you all are
Okay.
discussing it via email, you can share documentation in preparation for a committee or a full board meeting. We just want to make sure that you're not conducting, like if you all were discussing via email, oh, I think we should add a sentence here, or
Uh-huh.
you know, let's use this word instead of that word, that should be done in public. But just sharing it would have been okay.
Okay. So I'm sorry to spring that on everyone.
I
Not
love
my-
it.
Not my intention.
No, this is great.
Uh,
Thanks for
At
putting in
least
this
what
work.
the change you made is a good one as opposed to not being a good one.
Well,
That would be
well,
so
and the
much
other thing I
harder.
thought, it was like, this will take us forever if we go through every little thing. I know everyone thinks that I love to do that, but only if it's efficient, you know?
Okay, let me ask you a question. Under selection, importance of a document of the times, what's that?
Well, it's something timely and relevant to an issue that's right now, I think.
In purchase. We've got purchase will.
Oh, shall. Right?
Yeah, I think we can get away with shall.
I have my little list of like, may is allowed, shall, must be done, will, future obligation or desire. So, those important words, right, Gary?
Up above, you had shall not fall below 20%, and you changed it to should, which was my biggest concern there. So I'm glad you changed that. Because we can't do it. But they can find the highest possible value, so that,
Mhm.
and then placement censure. That's definitely true. Okay. The only other concern I had is, usually when you do these kinds of things, you need definitions. We never did that. Did we just add any definitions?
We did. So the library boards, it's not a policy, but it's near where your bylaws are. There is a set of definitions that goes along with it. Let me see if I can find it really quick.
Glossary.
A glossary. Thank you. Yes, that is the
Yeah.
correct term. So there you go. If you go to the policy committee and then you go to the very bottom down here where it says glossary. This is the glossary that the last iteration of the policy committee put together.
Oh, yeah. Okay,
I won't go through the whole thing, but
Mhm.
I would hazard a guess that a good amount of the words or phrases in the amended policy Fran is recommending are in there, but we can always review this as well and see if there's anything that needs adding.
Yeah, that was my question, if there's anything that we're doing today that adds something that, like, hold and
No, hold should be in there. Yeah, holds is in here.
Okay, good.
There's a definition for policy. Selection.
I guess we don't have reserves.
yeah, that was another one.
Yeah, that could
But
easily
we
be
should,
added to the hold statement.
yeah,
Well,
Yeah.
anyway, look at it then, and see if there's anything else. You can do that without us.
I would be happy to do that, and then I'll provide a report back to you all at your next meeting.
All right.
then the other thing, is this where let me look on the existing policy, is that where we have the links to the ALA documents, or is it?
No, that's the next one, I think.
It is. So if you are on your
On
policy page
selection,
and you go to policy G on the selection of
yeah,
materials,
it's there,
there are three addenda
Right.
that are linked in there, which are also underneath your bylaws.
right?
Would you want these linked back in to the modified policy that you all are recommending?
I think they're good, yeah.
I think they're helpful, like not Gary. I'm sorry, Brian just used them recently when we had a conversation about the way we conduct business selection, collections, et cetera. He referenced that. I think it's useful for us for explaining why we do what we do.
And I would just ask if, make sure that we have a link to the most current.
And just ignore all the awful formatting right there.
Sure.
Fix that afterwards.
Right, well, Fran, I gotta thank you for coming up with this because to be honest, I felt I was in a dilemma. I didn't like going through that whole thing. I thought that was the desire of some people. And you got me out of my dilemma.
Oh, good.
I do apologize, but I just don't work well, with the screen and all that on something that makes sense.
Oh, good.
But I think we got through it fine. And I'd like to entertain the motion.
So Parker already made a motion to move this forward to the full board. So at this point, you're looking for a vote on it. I don't think you need a second. Already
Second.
discussed.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Bye.
Opposed? Good. I am so happy. So,
Progress.
okay, do you want to go on to the next one or?
So I may have made that way too short.
Ah.
And I think my feeling was, well, yeah, it's at the bottom of that page.
It is. I wanted to pull up the original one to show people first.
Mhm.
Let's see, which is that one. Policy S. Okay, I will share my screen again. My apologies for the delay. Okay, so this is the current policy S regarding the recommendations about current and potential library materials. It itself is not particularly long, but the version that Fran is recommending is one sentence.
Just presenting, not recommending.
Oh, sorry, presenting is this portion down here. You all would have had attached to your last agenda a copy of the current version as well. I don't think you had a chance to start discussing it at your January committee.
In a way, what the policy currently is almost like the letter that when you're on that committee that you have to write, because you have to put in a lot of explanation and I don't know. Well, to me, it was sort of like, but yeah, once again, I have the caveat, do we need more than just say, as the board, we say that the library shall implement a process and then staff takes care of that. But is it too short? Is it too, yeah, we'll respond. We're happy to. We're happy to.
My initial reaction to that is I would be strongly opposed.
What?
I'd be strongly opposed to this. And I think, as I said in an email the other day, in effect, the staff is coming up with a way to check itself. They make the decisions, they decide how to review the decision. They're completely reviewing themselves. My suggestion would be that the staff should implement the process and then that the board approve the process.
And Gary and I have spoken about this a little bit as well. As staff, that is not the method that we currently use now. We will, of course, do whatever the board is interested in implementing as a policy. The current policy I put on the same page so you can see both Fran's recommendation up here and what the current policy S is as it stands. You also have, I believe we emailed around the current reconsideration process, which Gary is correct, staff have developed. And the process is documented online as well. It's all available. It talks through what it looks like when you have an item that you'd like to have reconsidered, who you speak to first, that you have to be a card holder, all of those pieces in here. And it also links back to some of those same statements that are in your policy G
Mhm.
currently and recommended going forward. So here is again, the recommendation Fran just provided and what is your current policy S.
My vision would not be that we would go through this and do anything other than say, yeah, that's good. We use it.
I can't hear exactly what Gary, what
I
you're
can't, yeah, I have
saying.
trouble.
I've been trying to, I don't think I heard you from the beginning. I was trying to pick up the thread, but I don't think I heard what you're saying properly.
Oh, okay. Our role as the board is to set the policy. And policy needs detail, which the board shouldn't be concerned with. But the policy should be I don't know, I sound like I'm going in a circle here, but the ultimate responsibility is ours. We can delegate some of that responsibility and not do it ourselves, but the ultimate responsibility is ours. And so this process of reconsideration, it's our responsibility to tell how you do that. And we're saying, okay, staff, you come up with how you think it should be done. And then we can just say, yeah, that's fine. Do it that way. But if we have nothing to say about it, the staff is reviewing it itself and deciding how to review itself. And there's no constraints on the staff whatsoever.
So, so what was here before, Jessica, let me just, now that I've heard what Gary said, what you have here in blue,
Mhm.
that's our current policy,
Correct.
and that is more detailed, obviously. And that is what we currently do,
Yes.
right? So that was developed when?
I don't think I copied that part, but that was
Oh, I have a
that's
date.
updated 2017.
Yeah.
So was that, did the board put that together? Or did staff put that together?
So this is the board's policy manual and staff make recommendations oftentimes about updates to policy.
Mhm.
Gary was on the last go around of this. He may recall or have notes more than I have in front of me. But this was not a drastic policy update, and the process did not change from how we had previously handled reconsideration. Gary, am I remembering that correctly?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think what we did was before this long procedure was part of the policy. And so we just came up with this 3-paragraph thing
Mhm.
and telling the staff to develop the policy, and they did. And I think you have a copy of it there.
Yes, so I think you're correct. So this policy here is the one that was modified in 2017 to take out the procedural aspects. And then the procedural portions were instead, that's not the one I wanted, were instead put directly into a reconsideration process overview with links and additional information for someone who might want to go through the process of recommending an item be reconsidered. So those are still both there. Gary, what I understand your concern to be is that staff are themselves regulating the process for reviewing reconsideration items. Is that accurate?
Right.
So maybe what you're asking the board to consider is whether or not some of this process portion needs to go back into the policy? Is that accurate?
No,
No. Okay, then I totally misunderstood. My apologies.
okay, I'm sorry. We, I guess we have three things. We can either have a description of what should be done, and then the procedures themselves are developed by the staff. Which is what we have now. You could go all the way the other way and just, as Fran has said here, is just tell the staff to come up with both the policy and the procedures. Or you could go back the way it was pre-2017, and the board does the whole works. They do both telling what the policies should be and what the procedures should be, because they're incorporated into the policy itself. And all I'm saying is that if you go the light way, or the lightest way, as Fran has, the board has not fulfilled its responsibility at all in this area. It's completely given it up completely to the staff. I don't want it to be very heavy. But and then I think that may be why I went along with 2000.
And I think the only place that says the board will be involved is not, it's not in this the current policy, it's in the procedures.
I agree. That's why I love the.
So, yeah,
But one of the things to consider is that review of materials is not a board responsibility.
right.
It can be, because you all have identified it within your current procedural aspect that you've sent to staff to validate. But the board's authority is really fairly narrow around this type of topic. You develop policy, and that policy is implemented on behalf of the library. So if you want the board to have more functional authority around the process for reviewing reconsideration items, you should detail it in your policy. But it is not backed up by like statutory requirements.
But really, it's like the board backs up the staff. I mean, I have that feeling like we have your back. We're here and we have it in our policy. We don't, I don't know if it's delegation, but we don't manage a process, but in our policy, it recognizes that the public may question and complain about materials. And what is our role in that? Our role, it is the role of the staff to respond, isn't it? I mean, what would our role be? Would we want the library board to vote on, oh, we agree with this complaint, you should take that book out? I don't think we would want that.
I'm not going there at all, Fran.
So like walking that line of how much detail.
Take yourself out of your role as a librarian and out of your role as a board member, and put yourself in the role of the public. All right. You're a person in the public who has a concern about something that the library's purchased and so forth. All right. They want their concern reviewed. And what we're saying here is that there's nobody representing you, the public, not only in this process, but in determining the policy for having the process. There's no place, not even a string that the public can look at and say that the board had something to say about it. And I just want that little string.
So
I
what
don't,
you're saying is,
I don't want the board. I mean, you yourself are at least saying it at the very end, if it can't come up with an answer that there is an appeal to the board. I'm not even sure that I go that far, but it is in the procedure, so that's fine. But
you said you're not sure about what, Gary? What did you say at the end?
I-
You're not even sure.
I'm not sure I'd even go so far as to say that the board should be involved in any of these appeals. But that certainly would be comforting to the public, and so
Are we currently?
yes, that's.
Yes,
Okay, okay,
so
That's
if-
the point Fran was making.
okay.
But what I'm saying is that the staff alone shouldn't be who decided to give the board the role.
You said the staff alone shouldn't be what?
The staff is what decided to give the board the role.
Oh, staff is who decided to give the board the sort of deciding vote in the case of an appeal.
Yeah,
Okay, and you're saying staff should not have been the ones to give the board we're the ones who give the staff should not give us. Is that what you're saying?
right.
Ah, okay, okay. But the way that prior to 2017 and currently in the 2017 or when it was rewritten in 2017 and to this point, that appeals process, which is that thread that you're saying for connecting the community to library procedures,
Mhm.
exists in that one
procedure.
power granted to the board that was actually, in your opinion, backwardsly done, that the staff was giving it to the board. That's what you were saying. Am I right? And you're concerned about that, the whole process of that's how we landed on that. Correct? I'm just trying, I'm honestly, I'm sorry, I was not hearing you well, so I'm trying to make sure.
Yeah, no, you're describing it right, except even that still has a thread, because we gave it instructions to the staff on how to do the procedures. We're not even doing that now, under what Fran proposed.
Oh, under Friends, like her suggestion, that we just,
We've given up everything. There's,
if we were to go with that,
yeah,
that would give it all up.
so, I mean,
Okay, okay.
I would suggest.
That's your caveat about accepting what Fran proposes suggestion to consider. The caveat is what you've just said regarding, kiboshing what we have and going with that much truncated one statement, one sentence.
Yeah, the way I think we could get by is to say that the board would approve the procedure. And I can't imagine a board turning down what they come up with. I mean,
Gary, can I provide a brief staff perspective?
yeah,
So I have some concern about adding in language to any of your policy that allows board authority over process and procedures. Just in general, not about this one in specific, just in general. Because when you start doing that, it really swings the tenor of what the board has the authority to do beyond the scope of what it is statutorily required to do. And I worry that if we start adding that into some pieces of your policies, future boards who might be of a different mindset than this board might take that as an opportunity to amend additional policies like the collection development policy, to say that there needs to be additional board oversight into those types of processes and procedures. So while I personally like Fran's pretty brief language, it kind of gets to the point of what needs to get done when people have concerns about items referring back to a process. I agree with you, Gary, that the current policy S, because it has more robust language in there and has worked fine for the last 6 years or so, might stymie some additional concerns that are out there if anyone ever actually reads these policies and wants to kind of take them up with the board. So that's my feeling.
I'm not sure I understood that, I'm sorry. Yeah. You're arguing against which, what we have now or what?
I am suggesting that the board keep the current policy S
Oh, okay.
as it stands. But of
Right.
course, you know, we're staff, we'll do whatever you all decide you want to do.
So you're sort of agreeing with my approach.
Not entirely.
Yeah.
I think what I'm saying is that I would caution the board against adding language to your policies that gives the board authority over process. Because the whole point of policies is that you've set broad language that gives direction in a number of different instances to staff to move forward around, and also gives library staff, who are also county staff, autonomy as needed to meet county regulations. Like this type of item is not one I would worry about a process that the board approved running into any sticky moments with county policy or process. But in general, I would have some reservations about the board adding process or policy approval language to your policies, because we don't know where that might lead in the future. That's my concern.
Well, we had it that way for years.
Yes.
I have a question that might throw us totally off base. When we started this discussion, when I was looking at this, I thought, why do we even have a library policy S? Why not incorporate kind of what's in policy S into policy G, which is selection of materials? I mean, the selection of materials kind of covers, outdated, inaccurate. But I think I now understand why there's a separate policy. And I guess I do kind of understand why we should keep this in place. So anyway, as the newbie, I was kind of thrown off, like, is there something we should just add to policy G that would cover all this? But I guess that's not advisable. Because I'm looking at this language, diversity of materials. And so if somebody says, well, you're not really, following your policy G. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that if I'm hearing you correctly, I would like to see a stronger linkage to policy G as we've sort of clarified our criteria in terms of suggestions and complaints. I'm not sure, the first paragraph is a really good statement of sort of philosophical reason why it's fine for you to, the choice of library materials is an individual matter. And then in the second, I think it's strong because the first paragraph is sort of, you don't like the material, so you can say something about it. And the second one, we don't have the most current collection on dinosaurs or whatever. you know, and then that's good. But then, and it said, then it says the title should be forwarded, then it goes into the process. In that second paragraph, it said, you know, the first one, the choice of library material is individual, and you can't interfere with what other people. The next one, we want to have accurate and up to date. When a customer retention is outdated, that's good. And then the title should be forwarded. And that's specific there. It's kind of and then recognize, I think this could be melded together in some way. And you know, remembering a book that I was on a committee to review that was really a piece of trash. It really was. And I remember reading it and thinking, why did we buy this? It's not, there's no redeeming quality to it for whatever. But that's my opinion. And people checked it out. Obviously, someone checked it out and thought it was horrendous, and complained about it. And then when we had many years ago, maybe 20 years ago, the objection from a community group about the Washington Blade newspaper and the want ads that were the personal ads that were in it. And that was every board meeting. Hundreds of people came to the meeting and they came to speak about it. And it went on for months and months, which is why we limit the number of speakers now. So, so what am I saying? Yeah, this is a tricky issue. And in a way, I think it's better. It's probably better to have a lot in there, because then if people get ready to complain, they can read this. This is something for an individual to read, and maybe if they would, I don't know that they would. Anyway, I'm sort of rambling here.
Well, Gary, would you like the committee to consider continuing discussing this at your next board meeting, which will be in person? So maybe that'll help with some of the kind of auditory technological issues we're having.
Yeah.
Good idea.
It's almost 4 o'clock, and give people a little time to think about it. I apologize for not being articulate in what I'm trying to.
No, I think it's just the sound. I don't think.
It's just
Yeah,
the
it's the
volume.
microphone
Just the
and
sound.
all that. Yeah.
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 And I would also ask, we forgot to add an approval of your January minutes to the original agenda, so that also needs to be approved.
I move that we approve.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's done.
Thank you. Sorry about that.
Okay, so we'll schedule another meeting and.
So I-
uh,
So I do have a question from those examples of mine, because it's in, I guess it's in the procedure of when does an issue come to the board? I mean, if a member of the public brings it to the board.
No, so
Then-
the
There's
process,
final appeal.
yes. So if someone comes to their local branch and says, I didn't like this book on dinosaurs because it didn't have enough purple dinosaurs in it, they would talk through the item with that staff member.
Right.
If they were still unhappy, that would get submitted to the collection services department, who puts together a committee to review it.
Mhm.
The respondents would get notification, and if they were unhappy with our decision, they appeal it to the library director, and if they remain unhappy, it can be appealed to the library board of trustees. And I think you all might recall, we get 1 or 2 requests for reconsideration a year that get to the point of even going to the collection services committee review process. It is not as often as many of our other colleague systems, because we have such a robust process in place, asking people to, you know, take their time and think about the item and let us know what their concern is, and really talk it through first before immediately, you know, shuttling it off into a paper process. So I will make sure all of this is available as well at your in-person meeting. Sorry, it will likely be in person once we hit March.
Fran, I can assure you that I don't want the board to get into.
What?
I can assure you that I'm not trying to get the board involved in looking at particular appeals. You know, I'm probably more liberal than you are in terms of censorship. pretty libertarian. I know you might get into some pornography stuff, and even the Supreme Court can't come up with it
Right.
better than
Right.
I know it when I see it. And so
I do think it's important to capture that point that I think Fran made. I was trying to make that point, but Fran actually made it, like maybe referencing, say, in accordance with policy G, because
Yeah,
there's all that stuff in there
Yeah.
that it needs to reference back to the whole selection of materials and how that's done.
mhm,
Anyway,
It does
Yeah.
make it look coordinated at least, like.
yeah.
I agree with that 100%.
Okay. I'll
And
make
so
sure that we
maybe
have-
maybe it should be a different letter. I mean, it's G and then isn't it, which one is which? I always forget now.
S.
that's,
Complaints
Yes.
of that.
Oh, G is G comes first. Okay, that's good.
do
So
that.
G is saying like, we have.
This is how we do it. Yeah.
Robust
yeah.
system for building.
And
our
then S is,
collection.
you don't
operating
like it? You don't like it? Okay.
You don't like
You don't like it? Okay, shut up. No.
Gary, I'll send you some dates after this meeting for potential future meeting.
And if people have some suggestions, could those be sent ahead of time?
Absolutely, that's a great idea. So as we look at scheduling your next in-person committee meeting, if you have recommendations for either a whole new draft of a policy or edits to the current draft S, the current approved draft S, excuse me, might as well share them with your colleagues, and then we can make sure to post those for public consumption as well in advance of your committee meeting.
Well, those have to be posted.
It depends. So if it's something you all are going to be seriously considering, like a document or a potential draft of a policy, we tend to post them. In prior iterations of the policy committee, when staff drafted recommended updates, we included those as part of the committee packet, just so that it was available in case a member of the community wanted to look at it as well in advance.
Would staff be interested in Jessica, you said you like something like what we have. Would you want to,
Sure, I'll take a crack at it. I'll update it so that it refers back to, in accordance with policy G. And I'll see if there's anywhere that it can either be strengthened to make the points that you were suggesting, Gary, or just in general, if there's any updated language needed, or broken links or things like that. Sure.
I like that. Okay,
excellent.
thank you, everybody.
Can I make a motion to adjourn?
Not even
Jump.
needed for committee meetings. You can just zoom on out.
Just
Goodbye.
Everybody, thanks.
shut us off.
Okay.
Bye.
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 Bye.